All right, so I'm here with Preece. Hey, Rich, how are you?
Hey, how are you, Hector? Good to see you.
Thanks for doing a video with me. And we're here at the Accountant Council. Can you explain what the Accountant Council is real quick?
Yeah, I can. So we get a group of about 15 accountants together, and we deliberately pick accountants from large firms, small firms, bookkeepers, as well as accountants from across the country. And then twice a year, we bring them here to Mountain View, where we have our headquarters, and we run through all of the innovations that we're working on in the accountant space. So I lead the product team here at Intuit, building all of this products and services for accountants, and we get feedback from the council. And so we ask them what's working, what's not, what should we change. And so the Accountant Council will have a very significant input into our roadmap and the things we're building for the hundreds of thousands of accountants who use our offerings and services.
Perfect, thank you. And how long have you been in Intuit for?
So I've been here for 15 years now, so it's been a long time at Intuit.
And what's your current role?
So current role is I'm called the Accountant Segment Leader, and that's a global role. So in essence, I'm responsible for QBO-A, which is the accountant's product that basically works with QBO, and then the Pro Advisor program, which is a sort of a membership training program, and that's globally. So we have about 500,000 accountants and bookkeepers who use QBO-A, and we have about 330,000 accountants and bookkeepers who are Pro Advisors, and that's the piece of the puzzle that I lead.
Yeah, and you did a live demonstration of QuickBooks Online and some of the new features on stage at QuickBooks Connect, which is the biggest stage that Intuit has to showcase their product. What are you optimistic about in terms of what Intuit is doing in terms of the small business industry and the accounting industry in terms of impacting what they do and how they do it?
Yeah, well, I'll just start by sharing that all of our research shows that 89% of small businesses say they're more successful when they work with an accountant or a bookkeeper. So that's almost the anchor point for everything we do. We try to connect accountants and small businesses to be more successful together. Now, I'll tell you, one of the things that excites me most on the small business side was what we call QuickBooks Assist. And so for anyone that's used Siri or any of the other sort of voice-activated tools that's out there today, imagine the same thing now on QuickBooks, where if you're a small business, you can simply hold up your phone, you can hold up QuickBooks, and you can say, tell me how profitable I was last month. And immediately you'll get an answer on your phone. You can say, tell me how much revenue I made last month and where my revenue came from. And you'll immediately get an answer and a report of where your revenue comes from. You can say, how does that compare to the same month last year? And again, you'll immediately get the answer. It's really going to transform the way that small businesses interact with QuickBooks, because it's all voiceover now. There's going to be sort of very limited keying in, so to speak, in QuickBooks. Right. So on the small business side, that's one of the things that it's in beta right now with about 10,000 small businesses, and that's going to be across millions here in the next couple of months. Yep. On the accountant side, I actually think it's the practice management functionality that we have. And so we've now built for accountants a tool where they can manage their entire firm in one place. And so they can manage the efficiencies of their firm, they can manage their clients, QBO clients and non-QBO clients. And so again, for accountants, it's all about efficiencies and helping them grow their practice. For small businesses, it's about doing the work in a more simple way than ever before, so they can get back to work and grow their business.
So if I understand this correctly, one of the secrets or goals for success with your accountants is to keep them inside the platform for a longer amount of time than before, possibly because they're not using other systems, right? They're using QuickBooks Online instead, or it just strengthens the relationship and the experience, right?
It does. Yeah, it's a little different. What I would say is, what we hear from accountants is that they have more tools, they have more platforms, they have more logins than they ever have before, and it's only getting worse.
Yes.
And so therefore our vision is, if QBO-A is just one platform, and it's one platform to manage all of their clients, whether they're QBO clients or non-QBO clients. Correct. Whether it's one platform to manage their practice or their clients, whether it's one platform which interacts with all of their third-party apps. It's that one place where essentially it's one login, it's one place, and all of those other tools that they use are still there, but they're integrated into QBO-A. So we're not trying to replace other tools, we're just trying to drive efficiency within the accounting practice.
Right. Let me ask you some sort of high-level questions, and I know I didn't prepare you for this, so
that's fine,
if you can't mention it, that's okay. There are, I always suspected a couple years ago, one of the main reasons why Intuit wanted to go to the cloud was to have access to better metadata information that they can use to enhance their customers' lives. One of the things that you were talking about in QuickBooks Connect is having real-time KPI information,
Yep.
like a comparison of your company versus peers, either locally, globally, or in the States, that would essentially give people a good benchmark. Or give me 1 second. Hold on. Sorry, I had to open the door for someone. Okay. We were saying, so one of the really interesting things you can do is not only you can provide a tool for small business, provide a tool for an accountant, but now that you have 2 million plus users,
Yep.
now we have some interesting pieces of information that could be used now in a small business or in an accounting setting.
Yep.
Whereas we can now take big data and bring it down in much useful size for small business. So I actually saw the writing behind the wall when I saw the whole QuickBooks Online thing. And now that you're showing the KPIs, it's obvious why you're doing it. But I want to go back to QB Assist, because I believe that QB Assist is following a similar trajectory.
Yep.
Whereas you only get feedback from your customers when they actually call you or they type in, here's my feedback.
Yes.
But now with QB Assist, you're going to start listening to their requests that you never understood, you never knew they were asking for.
Yep.
We're using voice, people are going to be more natural, and their questions may be questions that you've never heard before.
Yeah.
So I believe that if you're starting to look at the metadata of QB Assist, folks talking to the computer system and say, hey, am I overspending in my movies expense, or whatever.
Yeah.
You start gathering information in terms of what's inside of the small business's mind and hearts and what worries them.
Yep.
If you start seeing a lot of folks asking questions that have a negative connotation, like, hey, am I going to be able to do payroll next week? Am I going to be able to keep my doors open next week? I'm sure you're going to start getting some questions like that. People really testing out the artificial intelligence. Not just, what were my revenues last month? Anybody can ask that.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to start getting some really interesting questions from folks, and that will give you tons of insight in terms of what's going on in their mind. Is that
well?
Kinda...
You're 100% right, and I'll even take it a step further. Sitting beneath that platform is both artificial intelligence, but also machine learning.
Right.
And when we say machine learning, what's really happening is that we understand that, for example, somebody that asks this one question, now we understand that 40% of the time, their next question is X. And so now imagine a world where it's not only getting smarter every time it's used in terms of an answer to a question, but it's now getting predictive on what's the follow-up question to that question.
Right.
And so now, fast forward just a few months, and we'll be able to start to literally answer questions that people don't yet know they have.
Right.
Because we'll know that thousands of other people who had this question then had the following question.
Right.
And so it truly becomes predictive in a way that we can help small businesses with problems that they don't even quite know that they have today. So that's the one side of it. And then the other side, just to touch on real quick, you talked about the sort of the metadata.
Yep.
Now, obviously, this comes with a real focus on the privacy of data. So we will be very careful understanding that data needs to be anonymized to protect folks' privacy. But with that said, imagine a world where you're a small business, you're a restaurant, and you have revenues of $2 to $3 million. You're in a certain geographical location, and you serve Italian food. Now imagine that you have 22 staff, but QuickBooks has several dozen other restaurants in that same location with that same revenue, where the average number of staff is 17.
Right.
Well, what a great conversation for your accountant to have with you, that it looks like, based on your revenues, your location, the type of restaurant you have.
You're overstaffed.
You're overstaffed or understaffed.
Yeah.
Now imagine a vendor situation where there's 20 QuickBooks customers using the same vendor, but 3 of them are paying 10% more than the other 17. What a great message for the accountant to call those 3 folks and say, look, in looking across the ecosystem of data, it looks like we should have a conversation with this vendor about your pricing.
Right. Maybe change the terms or negotiate the terms.
Exactly. And so that's where we want to use data to advantage the small business, advantage the accountant or bookkeeper, all with the sort of success of the small business in mind. And we think that we'll be able to do that in ways we've never even been able to in the past.
That's right. Thank you. Let me ask you one last question, not related to accounting and the product. We just saw the new look of what the marketing will look like for QuickBooks, and the video will be released after I'm authorized to release the video when the marketing comes out to the public, because we may be a few days behind that public announcement.
Yep.
So the theme is, so the marketing team could come up with anything. Right? They come up with anything. They could come up with books done, get on with your life. They could come up with any slogan, and they came up with a slogan that felt a little ambiguous at first, and then when I saw the whole thing, it made total sense, which is backing you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about QuickBooks backing you What's the message?
You know, I love it. So the message truly is, for every single small business and self-employed that decides to be a part of the QuickBooks ecosystem, our job as a big company is to back that individual small business, self-employed, accounting professional. And the reason why I like it so much is, one of the challenging things to do when you get to become a large company, you know, we're $5 billion annual revenue, we have 9,000 employees.
Yep.
I think if you're a customer of ours, the first question is, do they really care?
Right.
And so, you know, I think it really hopefully sends that message that, you know, whether you are, you know, you saw a video today of a QuickBooks customer who makes honey for a living.
Yep.
And how QuickBooks Capital gave them $10,000 that they didn't get from a bank. They got declined from every lending institution until QuickBooks Capital gave them $10,000. That gave that person the chance to expand. We're backing that individual. You also saw examples of where QuickBooks now, the team here, looks at Kickstarter every week, and we try to find small businesses where it's the last day and they're about to not meet their target. And we try to find the ones that we think actually are doing a great job, and so we give them that extra $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 that helps them meet their target. Wow. And so all of these are just individual cases, but it helps remind us that, you know, we are backing you, and you is one of the millions of small businesses who are our customers. Right. And it truly is an individual relationship we hopefully have with each of them.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Rich.
Cool. Thank you, Hector. Thank you.